800,000 arrivals. The price Canadians are paying. Welcome back to Canada Chronicles. Canada's immigration story in 2025 is full of contradictions. On one hand, official numbers show barely any population growth early this year. On the other, Canadians across the country feel the pressure every day, whether it's housing costs, healthcare wait times, or schools that can't keep up. In this video, we'll break down what those numbers really mean, why communities feel the squeeze even when the data says growth is small, and how new rules for students, workers, and asylum seekers are reshaping daily life. And here's the part you won't want to miss. Near the end, we'll uncover the quiet rule changes that will decide 2026. Policy shifts already in motion that could completely transform who gets to stay, who gets left out, and how much pressure Canadians will feel next year. So stay with us until the very end for insights you won't hear anywhere else. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss timely updates that could affect your future in Canada. Let's get started. Canadians are living through a paradox that feels personal. Communities feel fuller, services are stretched thinner, and yet the official population numbers for early 2025 barely moved. Between January and April, the national population increased by just over 20,000 people, the smallest quarterly change since 2020. On paper, growth almost stalled, even as daily life told a very different story. Why the strain feels worse than the data suggests? Canada's population count is based on net change, arrivals minus departures plus natural growth. It can look small even when the gross flows are enormous. In the first quarter of 2025, the number of non-permanent residents declined by more than 60,000, leaving about 3 million people with temporary status at the end of March. But neighborhoods absorb the full weight of people moving in and out during the quarter, not just those who remain at the end. Communities shoulder the costs of the traffic, even when the official balance looks modest. Who the 800,000 represent in practical terms? When people hear 800,000 arrivals, they often picture one group. In reality, it blends several categories: permanent residents, international students with study permits, temporary foreign workers tied to specific employers or holding open permits, and asylum claimants allowed to work while waiting for decisions. Each group creates demand for housing and services. Ottawa's own plan projects hundreds of thousands of temporary residents each year, over 600,000 in 2025 alone, slightly fewer in 2026, and more again in 2027. These figures refer to permits issued, not the net growth reported by Statistics Canada. That distinction is crucial. Housing pressure without easy numbers. Housing markets react to waves of demand. Tens of thousands of students arriving for the start of a semester, or workers arriving before a seasonal hiring rush, can cause rental demand to spike long before the offsetting departures occur. Even if the net annual growth looks modest, those waves strain vacancy rates and push rents higher. Some cities reported early signs of easing in 2025 as growth slowed, but years of underbuilding left major markets like Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary structurally tight. Why students matter so much now? International students have been central to the 2025 debate because multiple rules changed. Starting November 2024, students can now work up to 24 hours per week off campus during academic sessions, up from 20 hours. A national study permit cap was introduced, with provinces and territories issuing attestation letters that determine how many students each region can host. For 2025, the federal government plans to issue about 437,000 study permits, around 10% fewer than the previous year. Proof of funds requirements were raised starting September 2025, meaning students must show more financial resources before being approved. These changes directly affect rental demand, the part-time job market, and which neighborhoods see the greatest concentration of newcomers. Temporary foreign workers and the wage debate. Temporary foreign workers play a major role in industries such as agriculture, caregiving, food processing, hospitality, and construction. Supporters argue these industries would struggle without additional labor, while critics insist that employers should raise wages and improve working conditions to attract Canadian workers instead. The debate intensified in 2025 as some provinces questioned the scale of the program, while Ottawa outlined plans to gradually reduce temporary resident flows. Asylum seeker accommodation hits a hard stop. Emergency housing for asylum claimants is another pressure point. Federal hotel operations have been funded only until the end of September 2025, with no clear plan beyond that. Cities and service providers warn that without replacement capacity, shelters will face overwhelming demand. Shelter strain plays out daily, not quarterly, so even if national numbers appear flat, the local impact can be severe. Express entry rules quietly rewired. In spring 2025, the federal government removed all comprehensive ranking system points for arranged employment, ending both the 50-point and 200-point boosts. Officials frame this as a fairness measure to prevent gaming of the system. For many candidates who expected those extra points, competition suddenly became tougher, and rankings shifted overnight. The citizen experience. Costs that feel personal. For ordinary Canadians, this story is less about statistics and more about lived reality. Families struggle to find doctors, schools face overcrowded classrooms, and renters are forced to outbid newcomers in already tight markets. The national data eventually balances, but people feel the strain in real time when arrival waves crest. Why net change misleads communities? Net growth is like checking a bank balance at the end of the month. It shows how much remains after deposits and withdrawals, but it hides how much money flowed in and out during that time. City budgets, hospitals, and schools must absorb the peak month traffic. When tens of thousands arrive at once, the pressure is immediate, even if many leave later. What's different in 2025 compared with 2023 and 2024? Two things stand out. First, Ottawa reset policy by tightening rules on students, capping intake, limiting off-campus work hours, raising financial requirements, and narrowing post-graduation work eligibility. Second, the actual stock of non-permanent residents declined in early 2025, reversing years of steep increases. This may help moderate demand over time, but shortages in housing and healthcare take years to fix, so the pressure remains. What 800,000 arrivals really communicates. The phrase 800,000 arrivals captures attention, but precision matters. Statistics Canada does not show a single quarter with that many new residents. Instead, it's a shorthand that blends permits issued and gross inflows. To be accurate, use permits issued when citing federal targets, and use net change when describing official population growth. How services actually absorb waves. Hospitals prepare for flu season by adding staff, and universities prepare for orientation weeks. Municipalities, however, face synchronized intake waves in late summer and early fall without the same ability to expand capacity, especially in housing. Even if growth slows, shortages in major cities persist because supply has lagged demand for years. Signals to watch through late 2025. Three signals will reveal whether pressure is easing. First, whether the number of non-permanent residents continues to decline in Statistics Canada updates. Second, whether the study permit cap results in fewer approvals this fall and next winter. Third, whether cities can manage shelter needs after federal hotels close at the end of September. Citizens' costs in everyday terms. For households, the price shows up as time and money. Time to find a doctor, time waiting in emergency rooms, time spent searching for a rental, money in higher rents, deposits, commuting costs, and the insecurity of frequent lease turnovers. These aren't abstract debates. They are concrete costs in people's lives. What fairness looks like for Canadians. Citizens hear two messages at once. Canada needs more workers, and the government is tightening rules to curb abuse. Fairness means intake levels that match the capacity of schools and hospitals, transparent reporting of both entries and exits, and quick action against exploitation by landlords or low-quality institutions. Thanks for staying with us this far. We appreciate your time and hope you're finding this information valuable. The quiet rule changes that will decide 2026. Small policy shifts change how 2025 unfolded, and the next round will shape 2026. First, with arranged employment points gone, express entry is now more heavily weighted toward language skills, education, and Canadian work or study history. This could alter who qualifies for permanent residency next year. Second, the study permit cap and higher proof of funds mean fewer approvals for underfunded applicants and more concentration of students in public universities and regulated colleges. Rental demand could shift as lower quality programs lose students. Third, the end of federal hotel funding for asylum seekers at the close of September leaves cities with urgent shelter challenges. The availability of beds is a daily operational issue, not just an annual number. From anger to answers. If the goal is to reduce pressure on citizens while keeping immigration as a strength, several steps could help. Pace arrivals in line with actual housing completions. Publish a monthly dashboard that tracks arrivals, exits, and housing starts so communities can see the full picture. Keep the focus on high-quality education pathways and ensure students arrive with realistic budgets. Accelerate licensing for internationally trained healthcare workers to expand system capacity, and fund municipal shelters or rapid housing solutions as hotels close. Canada's population may have barely grown in early 2025, but the pressure on daily life was still real. The problem is not just totals, it is timing, logistics, and planning. Manage the waves more carefully, align intake with real capacity, and the price Canadians are paying will ease without losing the long-term benefits of immigration. Canada's 2025 immigration story shows how numbers on paper don't always match the reality Canadians feel every day. The official data might point to modest growth, but the impact on housing, healthcare, and schools is immediate and deeply personal. What matters most is whether governments align policies with capacity. Looking ahead, the powerful policy shifts we discussed, changes to work rules, study permits, and asylum supports, will decide how 2026 plays out. For Canadians, the price of arrivals isn't just about totals, it's about timing, fairness, and whether the country can match intake with the services people rely on. Thanks so much for watching and staying with us through this important breakdown. If you found this video valuable, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so more people can understand what's really happening. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update here on Canada Chronicles. Until next time, see you in the next video.